So we did commit to talking with, today, Thursday, we talked with a member of the committee, Minister Shamfa Cudjoe, and then tomorrow we'll get, this is the government side, and then tomorrow we'll get the opposition side. So we do have Minister Cudjoe on the line. Good morning to you, Minister.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Tony and Dale.
Right.
Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. So before we get into the actual business, where are we in terms of getting a resolution following the 6-6 tie? Have we made any progress whatsoever?
Well, the 6-6 tie and this internal self-government bill, they are not related. The internal self-government...
yeah, I know that, but I just wanted to get a sense of where we are in terms of... Any progress at all with the 6-6?
I don't think so, because earlier this year, the Prime Minister would have called a meeting with both sides, and the conversation or the agreement then was to try to come to a solution and utilize this time as we prepare these internal self-government bills so that we face the polls one time. You would have noticed that earlier this year, the government brought to the Parliament and it was passed a bill so that there can be, to allow the Tobago House of Assembly to hold an election if they haven't chosen a Chief Secretary and presiding officer. I think it's within 30 days, and that was passed. That bill is supposed to be proclaimed in order to allow an election to take place, but it hasn't been proclaimed yet.
Now, these two, Madam Minister, good morning to you. These two bills which are going to the Parliament next week, Monday and Tuesday for debate, are those the outcome, or what is going to the Parliament is really the outcome of the consultations? I suppose you were part of the committee. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was a part of the committee. I was also a part of the consultation, which started in 2007 with the John Prince Committee. The Tobago House of Ashwood Jack would have brought in 2006 a motion to the Tobago House of Assembly asking that we look at this internal self-government journey and have consultations with Tobago in a more organized fashion, and all of the Assembly agreed. And from as early as 2008, 2009, I remember being a part of the consultation that started in August 2009, all the way up to 2016. Over the years, different administrations have promised to do justice to the motion that was originally brought to the House in 1977 by Robinson. In 1980, we had the creation of the House of Assembly Act. And then in 1996, you had the Tobago House of Assembly Act that we are now operating on. It has been 25 years since. The conversation has gone on since then and promises made to improve the position. And here we are 25 years later after going through the different consultations.
Do you think, Madam Minister, that there has been enough talk on this? Would you say there has been enough consultation?
Time for action.
Time for action.
I think there has been enough consultation. It's time for action, yes, because this is the only matter in Trinidad and Tobago that has had this level of consultation. When you look at everything placed before Parliament over the years, not even our own independents enjoyed this type of consultation. By the time John Prince submitted his first report in 2011, he had already done 42 consultations and 3 larger conferences. And then when Hochoy Charles and Orville London got together in 2014, a new set of wider, deeper consultations happened between 2014 and 2016. This Joint Select Committee came to Tobago in 2018. We called for submissions. We received 31 written submissions in 2018. We had oral submissions also from people in Tobago. We went back again this year, and we have gotten written submissions and oral submissions. And so we have to bring the work coming out of the consultations of 2009 all the way to 2018. We have to bring that to some close and advance in our journey towards internal self-government. there are some people saying, let's just go full out and do everything right now. There are some people even talking about secession. But when you look at the journey of any other country or the countries that were proposed to us by the Tobago House of Assembly and the Tobago Forum coming out of the consultations, Northern Ireland, Scotland, it was done in a step-by-step way where we embrace different steps and stages in the journey until we get to a point where we did federalism or secession. I know in my involvement and what I heard over the 9 years of following these consultations and even today, Tobagonians did not say they want secession, and I think it's rather unfortunate that those opposites are trying to tell Tobagonians this is not enough autonomy, and they're speaking a language of secession, trying to piggyback on an internal self-government conversation and consultations that will get towards preserving the unitary state.
What is the significant decision that you all are looking for that the average Tobagonian would understand? Keep that in mind. What is it that you all are proposing that the average Tobagonian and Trinidadian would understand?
Well, first and foremost, we are looking at removing cabinet dominance over a wide number of areas. Right now, we have Schedule 5 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, where we know the cabinet is responsible for the general direction and control of different development areas. But here we are amending Section 75A of the Constitution to now have the Tobago Island government and the secretaries under the island government to now be responsible for the general control and direction. Another plus in this proposal before us right now in 2021 is the increase in number of miles for administrative or executive jurisdiction. Right now we enjoy 6 miles in the current Act 40 of 1996. We are now proposing 11 miles. 12 miles were requested. We are proposing 11 miles. There are some people who are saying then that 11 miles should be placed in the Constitution also. But all the advice from the legal luminaries have told us that being an archipelagic state and Trinidad and Tobago being one unitary state unified by its waters also, we should not put a line, a delineation in the Constitution because it would affect our international treaties and it would no longer define us as one unitary state. We have an increase in the number of assemblymen, and that was proposed by the Tobago House of Assembly coming out of the consultation. Up to 26. So we have 15 elected, the president, and 10 nominated councillors. Then we are going to be having for the first time representation on the Public Service Commission and representation on the Teaching Service Commission, where a member from Tobago will have to be there to form the quorum when any matter relating to Tobago is discussed. Then you have increase in the budgetary allocation. Right now, we have 4.03% in the Tobago House of Assembly Act of 1996. Now what is being proposed is 6.8% as the minimum. And we have a fiscal review commission that will propose to Parliament increases that are geared towards advancing Tobago's development, revenue sharing measures, and so on.
Am I reading right, Minister, that you all also want to have a premier?
I think a premier, a chief secretary, a rose is still a rose no matter what you call it. When we did the consultations and we engaged people from different jurisdictions within the Caribbean, for instance, St. Kitts and Nevis, it was felt that changing the name from chief secretary to premier would be a better or more respected title when the chief secretary or when the head of the assembly sits to negotiate and conduct the business of Tobago throughout the Caribbean or with the United Nations or whatever, just like it's done in St. Kitts. It was just a simple adoption of the name from St. Kitts. But the people of Tobago have said, you know what, we like the name Chief Secretary. We want to keep the name Chief Secretary. And there is no big major difference. A name is just a name. A rose is a rose, no matter what you call it.
I'm curious, though, Madam Minister. What's your preference, though?
My preference is whatever the people of Tobago want.
That's an easy way out. What is Madam Minister? You're an experienced person now. What is your preference, Chief Secretary or Premier?
A respected leader, I'll tell you. Based on what the advice, if you're going by the advice of Mr. Perry coming out of St. Kitts, talking to the people who we spoke to in St. Kitts, it felt like Premier is more respected. No problem. Based on the conversation, Premier seems to be more respected. But at the end of the day, I think it's how the person carry themselves and how they conduct the business. And if the people of Tobago feel safe with Chief Secretary and want to continue in that vein, it's linked to our culture or practices over the years, then I see no problem. A rose is still a rose.
Madam Minister, I think
don't want to spend too much time on that.
I know you wouldn't. I know you wouldn't. I know you have your agenda and that you. But you give me a little dance there just now with that one. But let's move on because I don't think you answered the question.
Is that the Tobago jig, Madam Minister?
I'm saying it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, and that's my final position. Whether you call it Premier or Chief Secretary, it really doesn't matter what you call it. You have to look at the substance of the bill, the substance of the legislation, and the gains that we are going to make.
It doesn't seem, though, that the opposition is going to give the support to these bills as you would, I am sure, want it.
In fact, Mr. Ho-Choi Charles says it's regressive.
He said it.
It's more regressive.
And Mr. Ho-Choi Charles would have to say why and which clauses he thinks are regressive or retrograde, as he called it. At the end of the day, when you look at every piece of this proposal, it puts us in a better position than 1996 that we currently operate under. For instance, we're now getting the opportunity to borrow and lawmaking powers for the first time. The current Tobago House of Assembly does not have lawmaking powers under Act 40 of 1996. Now you have the ability to legislate, create your own law in a wide number of areas, and that removal of cabinet dominance is a very important thing that we have clamored for over the years, and now you're getting that in over 30-something areas. I think that's very critical. It's a step in the right direction. There are people who are speaking to secession, and are saying, we should draw a line or have that delineation. But that conversation is not only about what Tobago wants. We also have to talk about what Trinidad would get. We cannot continue to have a conversation of what is mine and what is yours is all, and expect to really get away with it. You have to negotiate. If Tobago wants to draw a line and say this is all, then don't be surprised if you get the same thing coming out of Trinidad, and we have to be mindful of that in this conversation. We have to also speak to the people about the benefits of being a unitary state. It's all well and good to hype up the people about secession and have that kind of emotional type of conversation, but at this point in time, are we in a place where we have the necessary infrastructure, the necessary technical capacity to succeed? And based on the consultations over the years, the people of Tobago did not say they wanted secession. So to piggyback on this type of discussion and this process that is meant to maintain and preserve the unitary state and try to foist or force secession on the people under the guise of internal self-government, I think that is unfortunate.
I just want to quote Mr. Charles, Madam Minister. In today, it's yesterday's Newsday newspaper. Mm-hmm. He called on Tobagonians, right. He said the Prime Minister has called on Tobagonians to support the bills, right? But Mr. Charles says, I have listened to Dr. Rowley, and he is very disingenuous. Mm-hmm. He has been saying certain things. What is he asking Tobagonians to accept? He is asking Tobagonians to accept that bill, and we are saying no. We have gone too far for the last 40-something years trying to do something, and they are now regressing. They are now carrying Tobago backwards. The words of Mr. Charles as quoted. Your view on what he has said?
I do not agree with what Mr. Charles has said. While I respect his contribution to the movement over the years, he himself knew well and good that even from Robinson, who would have been his leader, who brought this whole philosophy to the fore in 1977. In 1980, when we got the Tobago House of Assembly, but didn't get to what Robinson proposed in 77, he didn't say, let me just throw that to the side. I don't want it because I didn't get what I proposed. And then Robinson became Prime Minister himself in 1986 with a 33-3 win. and 3/4 majority in the House where it could have been done. And even then, as Prime Minister, he did not accomplish it. Then in 1996, Robinson and his Tobago party were in close union with the UNC. Yes, and in 1996, we accepted the little gains that we got then. I'm saying this is a giant step in the right direction. And wanting to do stuff like borrowing without speaking to or without consulting the Ministry of Finance, you have to take a step of borrowing in consultation first, and then building your economic capacity, telling the people, you're going to write to the United Nations to grant Tobago full autonomy and to secede and so on. It's very emotional, and you're setting the people up. And you know very well and good that we don't have the infrastructural capacity right now to secede. And it's unfortunate that you're preaching secession under the guise of internal self-government. The mandate given to the Joint Select Committee, of which I am a part, is to maintain the unitary state. And when we consulted the legal luminaries and even the United Nations, some of what was being proposed in the 2016 position speak more to secession rather than to preserving the unitary state, and we chose to preserve the unitary state. If Portroy Charles and the PDP and those opposing are saying Tobagonians want something else now, then you can't piggyback on that consultation. You need to go out with a new set of consultations and get the permission and the approval of the people of Tobago for this secession of which you speak. But as far as I am concerned, and I am aware, and based on my participation in these consultations, the people of Tobago did not approve secession, and it's disingenuous, unfortunate, and ill-advised to try to force that on the people of Tobago at this point in time under the guise of autonomy, more authority, or internal self-government.
Minister, we have to leave it there, but it is clear. I'm curious to see what happens after next Monday and Tuesday, because I think you have robust opposition in and out of the House. In and out of the houses. Well, there's no house in Tobago at the moment. So it would be interesting to see what happens at the end of the debates next week.
Well, we look forward to the contributions of those who are in the House, and we look forward to hearing more also from the people of Tobago and Trinidad on this matter. The committee has completed its work, and I think we need to embrace this step, embrace this opportunity, a huge step in the right direction, and continue working just like Scotland did, just like Northern Ireland did, towards our internal self-government.
Again, thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Minister.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Minister of Sport there and Community Development, Shamfa Cudjoe, and more so the Member of Parliament for
She's
Tobago.
been around a long time.